welcome to Pocket Watch, where we deep dive on the best and worst film and TV the universe has to offer. I'm Stephanie Bendixson, and our world is crumbling around us as we check out episode 7 of the Disney Plus series WandaVision. Today I'm joined by Will Yates and Peter Burns. William, have you ever thought about running away and joining the circus?
I've thought about joining the circus, but it's the running away part that I'm like,
Fair, you need a stationary role.
Yeah.
And Peter, my husband, if you were to die at the hands of a guy with a nutsack chin, I'd want to bring you back to life as well.
Well, that's lovely, but I feel like I am probably the nutsack chin person. If you shave,
very nice.
If you shave my little chin hair, I've got a good little crack there. So I reckon I could pass as a Thanos. Chiseled. I reckon I could cosplay a Thanos pretty well. Yeah.
As always, we're going to do a spoiler warning before we continue. If you have not seen episode 7 of WandaVision, we're going to be deep diving on all of the plot. We're going to be breaking it down moment by moment. So just tuck this into your pocket until you've seen it and then come back. If you have seen it, though, let's dive right in. Temperature check. Will, I saw a tweet from you that looked a little bit negative in response to this episode. We'll start with how you're feeling about it.
Yeah, look, I feel like it's coming off the back of last week where I was also in the same kind of like, this is different, and I feel like I'm almost wondering if I've been let out of Wanda's mind prison as well, and I'm like seeing the show for what it is, which is like some tropes and like 2 pieces of information, and then sometimes that information links and sometimes it doesn't. It's still another fun episode, but this one, I also don't have much of a connection to the modern tropey sitcoms as well, so I think I lost footing there a bit, but there's still a lot to discuss, so I don't want to take that away.
Fair enough. And Peter, it's your first time on the show, so what are your feelings about the show so far, including this episode?
So up to this point, have really enjoyed the journey that we've been taken on. In particular, I like the filmmaking of it all. Because I'm not a huge Marvel person. I think that all the performances in this have been spectacular, and I think Marvel always does a good job with performance. So they've got a great cast in some interesting ideas, and it does feel short. Like the episodes feel like an idea kind of wraps up really quickly, and I feel like this one is the same. But I'm kind of okay with that. I'm kind of in that groove, and I don't really need 12 hours of this before the next movie, and we're going to get about 6 or 7 by the end of this series. So if you look at it as a whole, it's quite a lot of WandaVision.
I do kind of like that feeling of the credits kind of sneaking up on you and then having that little heartbreak moment where you're like, I wanted to stay there, but then it just makes you so excited for the next episode. So they do a good job of keeping you wanting more, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And I mean, you and I, Steph, have watched most of Modern Family, and this...
And we binged The Office as soon as we went into lockdown, so because we'd never seen it before, you and I. Not the American one anyway.
Yeah. So all of this landed very well for me.
I will say it felt maybe a little bit more forced than I feel like the sort of pantomime-esque qualities of previous years' sitcoms are easier to kind of be theatrically over the top in, whereas this is more current, and I felt almost a weird disconnect with the fact that she suddenly moved into a sitcom in present day because she is an actor of present day in traditionally very dramatic film, so it was weird suddenly seeing her in a present day comedy. It almost was like it didn't fit. As an actress, she didn't fit, but then I kind of appreciated her commitment to the genre.
Yeah, totally. I mean, right from the start, she's channeling Julie Bowen's character from Modern Family, and she's nailing that performance for sure. And yeah, I can see how it feels weird because it's a bit interesting. I mean, obviously we want to dive into the meat of what happened in this show, but modern sitcoms are interesting in how panto they can still be, even with cutaways and fun music and being a bit weird, and still being perceived as quite grounded, particularly in the way that characters talk to each other, and we get a bit of that in this, and we also get a bit of the lunacy of like the hyper real, I guess, is what they go for.
Yeah. Well, let's break it down scene by scene. We opened with Wanda trying to sleep in after the events of the kind of Halloween, I suppose, disaster where she ended up having to expand the boundaries of Westview. She's exhausted. She wakes up. She's still in her costume. And she just wants to just chill for a day and have a modern woman's me time sort of afternoon where she can just, relax a little bit after everything that happened. But we do see that the world around her is starting to fail a little bit. We're seeing different items of furniture in her house are kind of zipping between different time periods and other sitcoms. So she's very clearly losing her grip on the world that she's constructed, which I think we were all probably expecting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Especially after last week. Like, you don't expand that hex and just recover.
Well, exactly, because we saw even just in the original boundary of the hex, as we got further out towards the boundaries of it, people were kind of less human and more kind of stuck in a robotic routine. And then when she expanded everything, it was like you could barely hold the world together as it was. So it was cool to sort of see that starting to kind of crumble around her, but she still very much had blinkers on, trying to pretend that everything was going to be okay.
Yeah.
What did you make of the intro sequence? Because it sounded very Office to me, but it looked like something else.
Yeah, totally. The music was definitely alluding to The Office, and wanted to capture that energy, but apparently it very closely resembles a title sequence from a show called Happy Endings, which no one has seen. Argonide in the Discord, in the Back Pocket Discord, pointed that out. And it's very much like a like flash cutting between different scenes with like happy endings written everywhere. And obviously we saw that with WandaVision, kind of jumping between things that we're kind of familiar with that kind of talk to what the show is going to be about tonally, and then just resolve on. I mean, it's the cheapest one they've made this season. It's just like, what can we download from stock images and just put WandaVision across the front of it?
It was probably just like the least exciting intro sequence, I guess, that we've seen so far, but that's fine. Not every single one has to be like the hero of the show.
Yeah.
And moving into the next scene, we're sort of back out at the sword retreat. I was very disappointed to see that Hayward was not included in the expansion of Westview. I thought he was going to be like a strong man in the circus or something. Will, he talked about we launched today, he said. What's he doing out there, do you think?
I don't know. I feel like they just want to get in. It's just a more people wanting to take over. Like, I don't know. I didn't. This episode has made me like step back from theorizing.
Yeah, right.
Because there's a lot of things that I'm
hard.
like, okay, you guys are just kind of, you're taking the easy path here. I think it's an A to B plot. So I think he's just trying to get in, just as Monica does as well.
Yeah.
And what would he be launching if not something that would like decimate everyone in Westview?
Yeah, I don't know it's necessarily launching a nuke. I think it's more launching the plan.
An attack.
The plan.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
We know he wants Vision, the body of Vision, for his cataract project, whatever the hell that is. He delivered I don't know if it's the actor or whether it's like very intentional, and most stuff in the show feels very intentional. So I feel like I'm leaning towards some of his line reads are weird. Okay. I don't know. They feel out of place to me. They feel like he's acting in a different show, which is very meta. He's in a different show to everyone in the real Marvel cinematic reality.
Right.
Like he said something like he goes like,
maybe he's just
I feel real lucky, and maybe he's a bad actor. But it was like when she was like, "We're lucky we didn't get caught." His response to that was like, I don't know. It feels like he's either like he's a supervillain or he's a bad actor.
I think he just didn't do a good delivery of that line. He's trying to say that, like, yeah, they didn't get sucked in by the hex, but he's in a shitty situation and he's the one that has to deal with it. So he's like, maybe. Sure, yeah, I'm really lucky right now.
There's the next shot, they cut to her looking back at him in a way that made me feel like we're meant to be her in this scenario going, what the fuck?
Right.
But
okay.
On second, I did watch it again because like, what was that moment? There's less in it than what I thought in the original pass, but there's something up with that guy.
It was like Gus's rotting child in the Halloween episode. Yeah. That was a kid in a costume. We also got to see Vision and Darcy team up. I was excited to see that happen. I have to say, I love Kat Dennings and I love her. I know she's not everyone's cup of tea, but I think she just brings so much like to this cast, I think, and I love her in the Marvel universe, and she always delivers. She plays the same character in everything she does, but like that character is awesome and it has its place in so many situations. So I'm glad that she's here and I find her a delight every time she's on screen.
Yeah, I've definitely warmed to her throughout this because it was like the Thor films. It was like, but they've also given her so much more purpose as well. Which
totally. I think the issue with
that character.
Yeah, the issue with the Thor films was like I think all the women in those first two films were like kind of superfluous. It's like, why are you even there? So it's cool to see her kind of have more of a role. And I like that she's kind of a comedic relief with her very dry humor. And it was cool to see her team up with Vision, who was kind of like the polar opposite of her. And they make a really kind of fun odd couple in this little van as they were driving along.
just from a production perspective as well, it's interesting that Vision's performances change with the times as well. Like to me, Paul Bettany's performance in this is very much in line with A Modern Family, but and not with MCU Paul Bettany, not with Vision.
Yeah.
So like I know he's not like he has some autonomy, right? But I still feel like he's connected to what Wanda's doing in a big enough way that he is like. He's doing some big expressions and he's doing some like his performance is usually very subtle and restrained and he's like this like very stoic character. But in this, like that interaction that they have where she's kind of chained up and he's like, we had a connection with the eyes and he's like doing the thing between their eyes and stuff like that. It's like, it's beautiful. I love seeing it. We're seeing the forte of like the whole spectrum of Paul Bettany's performances in one show. It's amazing.
He's so great. And I think it's cool because, everyone who kind of exists within Westview is under Wanda's control in some form and has to kind of fit the characterization of the sitcom world that they're in. And even though he's breaking out of it, it's clearly a struggle. It's not like he's 100% himself right now because he still falls into those situations where he's giving his monologues to camera, breaking the fourth wall in the way that modern sitcoms do. And then, later on he has those moments where he's like, hey, wait a minute, what am I doing? The fact that they're driving in a truck and they're cognizant of what they're trying to do and what their goal is, but they stop for like roadworks. I was like, go around, just go around. But it's like they're in too much of a bubble to be able to kind of break all the way out.
Yeah, he flew to the border last episode. It's like, just fly again, buddy.
I mean, you're obviously skipping to that a little bit there. I like that he makes the realization to leave through his piece to camera. He's like, why am I even doing this? And then it cuts back and he's like, I'm out.
And I have to say, I feel like totally taken in by the whole Agatha situation because, in the Halloween episode, as you said, Will, when she was in the car and Vision approached her, I was like, she seemed really genuine, like she didn't know what was going on. And like we've been kind of back and forth on her a lot throughout the series. And I was like, maybe she's just as innocent as everyone else. And as soon as she said that she was going to take the kids this episode, I was like, God damn it. And that cheeky line, I actually did bite a kid once. I was like, oh God, what is she?
We'll get to the big reveal about Agnes at the end, but I'm still, after everything this episode, I'm still on the fence about her. But we'll talk about that later.
We'll get there.
We'll get there.
And we also kind of are trying to empathize with Wanda throughout this whole episode, who was just like, we've been thinking about her as someone who is detached from reality and trying to create a world that she can exist within and not face the horrible things she's had to endure. And this episode is probably one of the most frustrating parts of that, where you're watching someone kind of in the spirals of depression who just doesn't want to accept anything, and you want them to come out of it, and you know that they're strong and they can do so much, but she's just kind of like, she's hit peak, like, everything sucks, and it's hard to watch her in that state.
Yeah, like, to me, this is she's reached a new stage of her depression. She's been in denial basically this whole show, right? And she's gone into this really dark place. And while she's still, like, there's still a lot of lightness to her performance, that feels more like a mask now than the denial did. The denial didn't feel like a mask. It felt like a wall, whereas this feels like she's pretending and failing to pretend to be okay. Like her performance is like incredible. I mean, at least my read of it is that she is just, like, the world around her falling apart, and just so beaten down at this point, to getting to the point of just giving up. Like, she's at the point of, like, nothing means anything. Like, even not wanting to spend time with her kids. They've been her sole focus since they were brought into existence 3 days ago, or however long ago it was. So it's like she's really, I think this is the most depressed we've seen her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. And the cereal and the flannel and the hair and everything, I feel like we can all empathize being in that state at one point or another, but never when, like, potentially the whole world is at risk. So we're really wanting her to break out of that. And then we had scene 3, which I think was probably one of the more frustrating scenes in the whole episode, where Rambo and Jimmy were sort of brought up to date with the Cataract Project. They're like, Hayward wants his sentient weapon back, and they're going to meet this engineer that Monica's been talking about. And this is kind of the problem with theorizing on shows like this. As much as we do, we start speculating all these wild and crazy ideas. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be the guy from Fantastic Four? Is it Doctor Strange? Is it Mark Ruffalo?
Just as himself.
Yeah.
And am I right in saying that the big reveal was a big space car?
A car that doesn't work. Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It was so upsetting.
Yeah. But the only consolation I can take from it is that I assume that some of these characters will exist in the next Captain Marvel alongside Rambo.
Yeah.
But they're literally nobodies right now. And it's like, come on. It's been like 3 or 4 episodes she's been teasing this engineer who's going to help her. And then, like, the reveal was literally nothing.
It's a literal engineer. Yeah. It's literally just someone who is an engineer.
Yeah.
It's like, great.
I know engineers in real life. I don't need this.
And I usually call them James or something. I don't just call them the engineer.
Yeah. And what was the logic behind this car being able to penetrate and not be changed? Was it what it was made out of?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was a few episodes ago. They were talking about how they could, maybe even 2 episodes ago, when they're shooting the pants. They're like, there's going to be some materials that are really rare that are dense enough to get through, and then in this, they were like, oh, it's matching the density. So clearly, they were just like, their theory was null and void, but it didn't seem to matter for too long.
It was super anticlimactic, and I love that she gets in her, like, little spacesuit and everything to drive a car through the thing, and the car just kind of goes up and then backwards, and then she just decides to yeet herself in there anyway, which I guess I was kind of excited about, because hearing from what you said, Will, about her being a character that develops powers, I kind of was excited for that to happen. So it was cool to watch her kind of go through that whole thing, I guess. But
it was like the most visually interesting way of gaining powers as well, just seeing all her selves split. And like I can't remember what the the specific power is, but obviously it's a lot of light-based stuff as well. And
does she have a superhero name? What is her superhero name?
well, so her mum was Spectrum, which is, interesting considering she can see the spectrum of colors when she gets out of there. So I think she may adopt her mother's name, but in the comics I think she's usually Photon or Proton or something a lot more basic. But so I think Spectrum is the way to go.
They're not going to just go with plain old John Rambo?
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, we see when we check back in with Vision and Darcy, there's kind of more of that sort of slapstick acting and that kind of thing. We then sort of get another flash of Wanda sitting at home in the house is transforming around her, and she's very confused about why she can't fix things. She feels like she's been in control this whole time, and at that point, she's like, I don't know why, when she's giving her kind of fourth wall breaking interview to whoever is behind the camera, which is a weird one for this episode. You kind of you do wonder that, I think, when you see that fourth wall breaking. And then we hear a voice from off camera say to Wanda, do you think maybe this is what you deserve? When you heard that, whose voice did you think that was, Peter?
Well, I mean, I had no idea. I assumed someone at her power or higher, because well, actually, I think my initial assumption was that it was just her tricking herself. It definitely is a modulated voice. Like, it was meant to sound obscured to us. Later on, we find out who it was. But in that moment, it's all about Wanda, again, falling into that depression and then being... in my mind, I saw that as just another way that they're showing how she's losing control. We've seen it throughout the whole series, but it's another one of those moments where the characters or the kind of set around her is fighting back against her, or breaking out of her control a little bit. And so she's again, it was just a slip of her control. And she's someone says, do you think this is maybe what you deserve? Sounds to me like her inner conscience going you're doing this. This is all your fault. And again, to me, I was she's attacking herself as in her depressed state. So that's how I read that.
It was a touching and sad moment, I think, in the midst of all of the comedy. It was a kind of a nice opportunity to break ourselves out of that genre and then suddenly think about how Wanda is interpreting everything that's happening, given that we also know that she must have a concept now of the fact that what she's doing is wrong and just really agonizing to people and children and all kinds of stuff. So it's hard to watch. And then when we kind of move on to Tommy and Billy, who are hanging out at Aunt Agnes's house, is it Billy that has the sort of Vision-esque powers?
Billy is speed. Tommy, I can't remember. It's probably the other way around. It's probably the exact opposite.
Right. He sort of has mentioned a couple of times that everything's really noisy. He can hear what's going on inside people's heads, and it's a frustrating thing for him. But when he's over at Agnes's, he looks at her and he says, "You're quiet on the inside." And it's a super chilling moment. And that was another moment where I was like, God damn it, Agnes.
It's coming.
Yep. And again, I'll have a counter to that, making her evil later.
Yeah, good.
Oh, okay. Then we see, obviously, Rambo's vehicle doesn't make it through and she goes through on foot. And that moment as we see her kind of breaking through the hex is really cool because we hear different voices talking to her. And I think there were snippets of Captain Marvel in there.
There's a few bits of Brie Larson, which is the third time we've heard her, so I'm wondering if we are going to get a cameo. This is a little bit of that tantalizing, remember this voice for later kind of thing.
Yeah,
so I'm wondering if we might see her later on.
That would be pretty cool. They need to round this episode out with something spectacular, like an appearance from someone from one of the films, I think, would just be the thing that would make everyone be like, that was worth it.
and Captain Marvel and Wanda have only met once, right? Fighting Thanos, and I think they obviously I can't remember if they're both part of the that big kind of girl power push where they they're both in that together. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So they've
girl power push.
Well, that's what it was, right? It was that's what it was. It was the whole ensemble of the kick-ass women fighting back. And yeah, they obviously Wanda has that moment where she like takes on Thanos by herself, and Captain Marvel has a moment where she takes on the whole. She flies to a ship and she carries the gauntlet to the truck and stuff. She's like, she has her own like battlefield dominating moment. But I think they hopefully have some respect for each other through that, and Captain Marvel's not going to come in as some kind of like threat to Wanda, but as like an understanding friend. Because Wanda needs one of those. But we missed the ad break as well that happened just after the off-camera thing from Agnes. Well, from Random.
This one was really dark. I mean, I thought last week's episode was dark. We saw that the Yogurilla one where he's trying to eat the yogurt and can't peel the lid off and then starves to death and wastes away into bones. That was super dark.
Yep.
This one was also really upsetting as an ad for an antidepressant, which I don't know if that was kind of like pointing to Wanda's depression or Will, did you have a take on what this
I think
commercial was trying to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely that. I think they do a clever job of like, generally the commercials will connect to something directly within the episode. So I think that definitely suits that kind of element, like last week with the kid not being able to live without the magic, Vision exiting the hex, falling apart. But this one references the nexus, which is a thing in Marvel. So there's like nexus beings, which are basically, I think this is how it works. There's a lot of Marvel things. It's like across the multiverse, that person knows that they are the same person in each universe kind of deal. I think that's what the thing. It's like you're like a singular being across everything.
Yeah, so as opposed to there being like
a different Pietro.
Like a different Pietro or a different like if you met Hulk in the other universe, he might not necessarily have been on the same journey as the Hulk of the universe that we know. So Wanda, I assume through her telepathy and her like how in touch she is with her like her conscience exists through dimensions somehow. At least that's like part of what we're getting. I'm sure I'm getting all this wrong, but at least that's what like the comics. I think some of the comics set her up to be.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So it's the nexus is the idea that across universes you share a common link with every version of yourself.
Yeah, basically. But then there's the other half, which is helpful to the possibility of Pietro, which is the nexus of all realities, which is kind of like a gateway to different multiverses as well. The nexus is kind of, it was in the Fortnite event. That's how all the Marvel characters got into Fortnite, was through the nexus.
Yeah,
so there you go.
Is that how oh damn, I forgot his name. I was going to say Travis Barker. Who's the guy that did that big concert in Fortnite?
Oh, Travis Scott.
Travis Scott.
That's how he got through. He used the nexus.
The nexus. Yeah. Cool. If we check back in with Vision and Darcy, they're constantly being delayed trying to reach Wanda, and that was a hilarious moment because I think we're all just like, why are you just sitting there? But as we mentioned, I think that's a big part of the fact that even though they're cognizantly aware of what's happening, they're not fully able to exist autonomously in the world all the time. They're still kind of being pressured to play a role in the sitcom and them driving the truck and stopping at the roadworks. And I love that.
Yeah. It's interesting that the kids are like, where's Dad? Wanda says if he wanted to be here, he would. And then from Vision's perspective, Wanda's keeping them away, right? She's creating all these diversions. So
totally.
She, again, is pushing away the things that she loves right now. Like, she pushes the kids, she sends the kids away, she's keeping Vision away. I don't know what that means.
Which is what a lot of people do, I think, when they're depressed and just can't deal with anything. She's just like, at the moment, I just need to be the only person I can trust at the moment is myself, while I just kind of grapple with what's happening. And yeah, I mean, I kind of get it. I think it was an important moment as well to sort of have them in that situation so that Darcy and Vision could have that conversation where she sort of fills him in on everything that happened, because you sort of forget that even though he's aware of what's happening, he has no memory of how he came to be there or what happened before. Yeah. So when she explains to him how he died twice and that Wanda had to watch, I think he suddenly gets this kind of, I guess, wake-up call as to what Wanda is actually dealing with and why she's hurting so much. And I love that moment where she says, I've been watching WandaVision for like a couple of weeks, whatever, and the love you two have is real. I was like, oh gosh, it is. Please let him live somehow.
That's so funny that you had that like mushy reaction to it. And I was like, that's such bad writing. Like,
really?
Yeah, I hated that. I love that. I like that she was there to fill him in. But like the line was like, the love you two have is real, is like the most like, that's what I would say on this podcast. And if you're not smarter than me writing a Marvel show, why?
But I think
it's also like,
it just felt like the most obvious thing to say, not the sweetest thing to, or the most poignant thing to say. It's just like she just said the words that needed to be said, as opposed to him having a discovery or something. I don't know. I feel like the show is really clever often with how it delivers information, and this was just like, the audience thinks this, and so that's what we're telling you.
It's also like pretty ironic because she is a fictional character watching what is a fictional show that Wanda has created about their love.
Yeah.
Like, while she's like, it's real, it's like, you know, you were watching a TV show, right? Like, Wanda is fabricating that for you.
Sure, but I feel like she's aware of them and what existed between them as real people before that as well. And I think in that moment, she's literally just like, she is speaking for all of us when she is just like trying to make it clear to him that this isn't just a construct of Wanda's. Like, she's creating this because a very real, emotion existed between them. And that's important to remember when thinking of Wanda as potentially a villain who's doing all of this, for some nefarious purposes. I think she's just like, here's a woman that's hurting and this is the reason why, and you're a part of that.
Yeah. We're being unfair with shutting down her trying to be sweet.
Yeah, and I feel like it's not Kat Dennings' role to be poetic. I think she's just like,
that's true.
She's about.
That's true. That would be totally out of character.
Wise cracks and one-liners is her forte.
Yeah, good point.
Then we see Monica reach Wanda, which is very exciting. That confrontation, I was like, what's going to happen? Yeah. Predictably, Wanda doesn't want any bar of her, even though Wanda's trying to explain to her that Hayward is coming after her and she's in danger. Wanda just freaks out and attacks her. But then we got to see her fend Wanda off with her cool new powers. That was a sick moment. I loved it.
Yeah.
It was the first little bit of like superhero action in the show, apart from like Wanda and Vision levitating for a second.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this is the Marvel now.
Yeah, totally.
I think I'm also just becoming a little bit obsessed with Teyonah Parris. I feel like she's just amazing, and I don't know how we haven't seen her before, and she's so cool. I love that line where, Wanda's complaining about lies and only people just lie to me, and she goes, the only lies I've told are the ones you put in my mouth. I was like, yeah.
Yeah. Like her character, it says so much about her character that she is so bold and strong in the face of what she perceives to be as a being that's like infinitely more powerful than her. And now she's come back with her own, she can like kick back a little, but we don't really know how powerful Monica is yet. She certainly doesn't know how powerful she is. No. So she's like standing up to what she thinks is probably the most powerful living being. And she's like, I'm trying to help you here. And she's like, she's not backing down at all. And I love how CG and just effects in general have become so much more comfortable in daylight. Because I feel like Jurassic Park stands the test of time, but if the lights were on that scene where the T-Rex is bumping the car over, it's not going to look as good. But we're so far in that like you don't even know, like it just, everything feels real.
Yeah,
the effects team do such a good job, and I love that it's in suburban America, every street. This like superhero fight is happening. I love it.
Yeah, I love as well how she just doesn't even take a moment to think about what's happening to her as well. She's just like, she just accepts it that she's doing something awesome now and kind of is focusing on the task at hand, which is trying to get through to Wanda. And I feel like she potentially would have succeeded had Agatha not intervened and pulled her away. Gosh damn it, Agatha.
Protect her.
To protect her, yes. For those of us still clinging to the idea that Agatha is somehow not...
There's more to this.
Similarly, we see Vision kind of realize the absurdity finally of what's happening, and he just, as you say, Peter, he flies. He remembers he can fly and just flies out of the truck, leaving Darcy to just be like, cool, I'll just meet you there then. I love that.
That was good
moment.
delivery. That was good delivery.
Yeah, she's got great comic timing. And then we sort of cut back to Wanda, who's finally starting to clue into the fact that things are perhaps not right in Agatha's home. What is the imagery that we're seeing there? Because we've seen a lot of animals associated with Agatha. Is that just like related to kind of devil stuff? We see sort of insects. Obviously, the rabbit is there, and the dog Sparky. There was like a bird at one point. Is that kind of connected to anything specific? I don't know anything about Mephisto or Agatha or her history, but it seems a lot of animal imagery was a big thing here.
Agatha as a character is very, very little in comics as well. So, I mean, I don't personally know. Have you found anything, Peter?
I did a quick search, and this is like a quick aside to how horrifying and incredible Google is. We just watched the episode, and like I started to type Agatha Harkness into Google. Never looked for anything like about Agatha Harkness before, and I typed AG, and it wasn't even Agatha Christie that came up. It's like, or a famous Agatha. It was Agatha Harkness after 2 letters. I was like, what the fuck?
Good.
They do everything. It was actually very convenient. And I found out that there's very little to know about Agatha Harkness. She's like one of the most powerful witches to exist in the Marvel comics. She was at the Salem trial. She was alive for 1,000 years before that or something.
Right. Okay.
And so she, at points in the comics, has popped in when Wanda was young as like a tutor to Wanda, because she has similar powers as a witch to what Wanda has as the Scarlet Witch, I guess. Again, I'm not a comic book aficionado, but I think at some point she is helping Wanda connect to the multiverse as well. There's she's connected to whatever thread of Marvel Comics link Wanda back to the multiverse as well. So
makes sense.
But
see her.
There was nothing about her being a vessel of evil.
Yeah.
Okay. We see her kind of like down in this as Wanda's pulled into this creepy forest purple basement.
Dark crystal-esque
area. Yeah, very, very dark. There was some kind of sinister looking book thing there, which could be some kind of creepy devil book or a book of shadows or something for if we're going sort of straight down the witchy path. And when she arrives down there and confronts Agatha, we get the most amazing "It's been Agatha all along" song, which is one of the greatest moments, I think, in the whole series. Was seeing that whole beautiful flashback moments to every single time Agatha has intervened to mess with Wanda and orchestrate certain things to happen. It was great to pull us through the entire series. Once again, with all those flashbacks, this very charming, hilarious little song. Thanks to Agatha, naughty Agatha. It's been Agatha all along.
Naughty Agatha. Naughty, not
Agatha.
Evil.
Oh, okay. Peter will die on this hill.
I will die on this hill. So, like, when she first walks through, Wanda's kind of creeping away through, and I think that's what all the animal stuff is about, is her ties to being a witch.
Right.
I feel like it's just
nature-based
totally
witch stuff.
Yep.
And obviously coming from a place where if she was around during Salem, comes from a long persecuted history and has a vendetta from the outset.
Yeah, but also I think, to me, the interaction that she has with Wanda as Agatha Harkness for the first time, where she introduces herself as Agatha Harkness, and we see kind of her hair kind of become a little more out and unkempt, and we see
Wild.
her kind of and not necessarily crazy witch, but she's becoming more natural herself. She's becoming more herself throughout that episode.
I'm bummed we didn't get to see her like full outfit, because when she first lands, you see a shot of her feet in this cool purple kind of witchy dress, and then it transforms into the costume that she wears in the first episode. So I'm bummed that we didn't get a reveal of her in her like natural state, but I'm sure we will eventually if she becomes a character that is going to be popping up, you know, more regularly.
I feel like we'll see it next week. I think we'll see. I think next week will be like the history of what actually just happened.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
We'll see the Salem witch trials and all the rest of where
Really?
she actually came from. Yeah, I think we're going deep with her.
Yeah.
Because if she is the villain, Peter, we need to know more about her to care. So I think we'll have a bit more.
Do we think the whole Mephisto thing was just bust then? Do you think she's not a conduit for Mephisto and she's actually just the villain of this and it's all her the whole time?
I think possibly, I think he won't be in the show, but it might be teased that he was behind it. I don't think he'll be brought out as like the big reveal. I think it's too late. You've got 2 episodes left.
Yeah.
There were so many devil references throughout the series that it seems like tough to ignore.
I mean, one of the craziest one is The Fly. Apparently, the first appearance of Mephisto, he appeared to, I think, the Sentinels or the Great Tribunal as a fly, and people are like, "It's Mephisto," and I'm like, "No, it's a fly. It's a fly on a wall." Like, calm down.
Yeah. Like. Totally, I think if Mephisto is name dropped at all, it'll be that Mephisto and Agatha are in allegiance, or Mephisto is persuading Agatha in some way, which is kind of where I am landing with her not necessarily being evil. Like that book, that like tome of lore was definitely like, that's evil. There's nothing friendly about that thing. But the fact that she arrived, to me, the fact that she's arrived at the Hex after the Hex has been created, to me, she was drawn to this power and has been watching, probably trying to get something to her advantage, but I don't think necessarily to kill everyone or do anything like we expect of a Marvel villain. If she is the villain, I think it's in a much smaller way, and I don't think she's necessarily connected to the idea of the Avengers and knowing the lore of all that. She's just like, oh, there's a witch in town who's going a bit crazy, and I want to be near that. I want in on that action, whatever's happening.
Good.
The fact that she killed Sparky too, that's pretty evil.
That's pretty evil. I feel like that's definitely not enough of a reason for her to be there. I think for her to have orchestrated so much within the events that happened, I feel like there has to be a grander plan at work. Otherwise, it seems like she's just like a wacky meddler.
Yeah, she's definitely been part of the cultivation of these 2 kids that have appeared out of nowhere, and she's been a part of their lives from the start. So. Like, maybe her goal is to steal these kids, and she knew that she could only make them from Wanda's powers or whatever. But
I mean, if we look at the song, Peter, the lyrics are who's been pulling every evil string? Oh. It's been Agatha all along. She's insidious, so perfidious that you haven't even noticed. And the pity is, it's too late to fix anything now that everything's gone wrong.
I'm not going to take a jingle at face value, though.
I think what was cool about that song too was that we got a clear answer on Pietro, in that him being the work of Agatha as well. Everywhere her kind of purple magic touches, we know that it was her kind of pulling the strings. And that song was a great way to end the episode. But that wasn't the end, was it, Will? What did we see halfway through the credits?
There was a mid-credits. Monica was snooping around and she found the basement, and then not Pietro snuck on by and said, "Snooper's gonna snoop."
Snooper's gonna snoop.
Which was such an interesting scene. Like, I think the way it was shot makes him feel so sinister.
Yeah.
But watching it outside of the context, he's not sinister.
Yeah.
I just feel like he may have broken out of the spell now, and he's like, I've been snooping too. Do you want to come see what I just found? Like,
I hope so. It seems like a weird thing to show us if it wasn't designed to throw us off the scent of what's actually going to happen. Like we're like, oh no, we saw in that song that Pietro was either working with or is a construct of Agatha. So obviously Monica's in danger now. He's gonna take her out, but. Yeah. And she, even if she has powers, I don't think she really knows how to use them yet. But yeah, I think you could be right. I think that could be a moment where he is maybe he's out of it and he's kind of trying to get a sense of what's happening, and maybe they'll team up together. Hopefully, I hope so.
Can I take it a step further as like, just in case it happens, I can like claim this for next week?
Yeah. Definitely.
Because I'm like, what I how like last week I was off the bandwagon of him being Fox.
Yep.
Pietro.
Yes,
I'm back on that bandwagon now because we got the Nexus, which is a multiverse.
Join us.
I'm on. And the imagery of what Agatha does is he's already at the door and she's like putting a spell on him. I think that's just like a mind trick. And so the Peter, because his name is Peter in the Fox universe as well. The person we see it then is he's broken out of that spell, and he's like, "Where the hell am I?" Like, because the issue that I have is, I don't think Agatha is multiversal, is reality bending. So I feel like this character has to have the powers of Quicksilver. Yeah. Like, she couldn't have given him that power. Yeah. So I think this character is the Fox one. And all she's done is made him go, you are actually from this universe. You got shot in a street. That's your backstory. And that's why even he's like, I don't get my backstory. This is weird.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking the beginning of next episode, we have a Vision, we have a Quicksilver, and we have a Monica to oppose a now mind-controlled Wanda.
I think the only people that don't want Evan Peters to be back in a very serious way are the effects teams that have to put together those sequences where he saves everyone within a split second, because they're the best.
We're getting the time in the bottle scene.
The best thing in the X-Men films. They're so good. And we need a million more of them. Please.
I went and rewatched them recently because I'd forgotten, and I forgot how cool he is. Yeah. He's so great. I love Evan Peters. I love Teyana Paris. I'm excited to see more of them exist in this universe. And I don't know. I feel like it was this episode ended in a way that surprised me more than any other episode has, even though, we were kind of suspicious of Agatha all along. But this was episode 7. We have 3
all along.
All along. We have 3 episodes left, correct?
2.
2 episodes left.
Yeah.
Oh,
supposedly an hour each.
Which will come down to like 35 minutes of footage.
Yep. Because when you look at the credits, that's why I'm sure many people miss that mid-credit sequence, because the credits are always 12 minutes and then they just put something in it this time. It's like, what? You can't do that.
It's same with The Mandalorian, that they didn't tell us about a little tease at the end of the finale. It's like, you've got to give us you know what it is? They just need to put that Netflix skip recap. All those buttons need to be in there so okay, there's not a watch credits button this time. You want me to see something.
Yeah.
We just needed that.
Yeah.
To know.
Although I feel like they know enough now that the internet will tell everyone when there's something that needs to be seen.
Yeah, people will find out.
People will find out and go back and rewatch things.
It's probably, that scene is probably on the Disney Plus YouTube channel already.
Yeah.
So you don't even have to go back to Disney Plus. You just watch it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that probably wraps it up for this episode of Pocket Watch. I'm nervous and excited for how they're going to wrap everything up in 2 episodes, but I really, really hope that it ends in a way that feels exciting and gives us something really huge. And I hope it ends more or less happily, because I love these characters and I want them to be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys sound like it's.
I don't
think it will.
I just don't know that it could. Something's got to give somewhere.
Vision comes back to life. Evan Peters exists in this world now, and we get shows about them.
Agatha and Scarlet Witch become the best friends. Witch detective
buddy
duo.
cop.
Yeah, buddy cop.
Yeah, I love that. I would watch all of that. Please check out our Patreon at patreon.com/backpocket and become a sponsor. Twitter, because we make lots of content besides PocketWatch. We have lots of gaming news. We have Back Pocket Tonight that we do on Twitch as well, if you want to follow our Twitch channel. If you're listening to this as a podcast, it'd be really cool if you could leave us a review. We've actually been reading some of the more creative reviews out on Back Pocket Tonight as well. So if you want to hear your review read out, then just then leave us a catchy one.
And we only read the 5-star reviews. So just so you're aware.
That's true. That's true. Pete and Will, thanks for the chat. We will be back next week. I don't know with who. Probably Nick.
I reckon he'll be back.
He's back?
I reckon he'll be back.
I reckon he'll be back. Yeah. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks for the chat.
Thank you.